And Happy New Year. It sounds odd saying that so late on, but it's our first -16 of 2025, 1 week later than promised. But we had some issues last week we couldn't get around, but here we are now. Just to give you some context, Daniel, who's normally on this weirdest of time zone on the other side of the world, is a little bit nearer to us. Where are you at the moment?
I am in San Jose, in California,
this
United
is him
States
flexing.
of America. Yes.
And Alex says, still tucked away, high up in the country. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. It is freezing here, to be fair, but no, all good, man.
The day we're recording this was supposed to be a storm that was going to wipe out half of Britain. I've had a little bit of light drizzle, is kind of some extent. I'm not going to brag because apparently it has been really brutal in parts of the UK, but
especially in Ireland as well, yeah.
Next to nothing. So we have got an interesting one for you. The reason we decided to wait 1 week was because there's been a little event. Haven't you been? You guys have been somewhere this week, I'm sure.
Oh. Mine is somewhere.
Do you know what? I've got this oddest feeling that I'm going to say very little for this next hour.
Well, I actually have two. So that's cool.
Oh, he really is.
Is that the S24 and the S25 Ultra?
No, they're both the same.
Oh, that was a joke.
Yeah.
I know it was. I'm
okay,
not falling
so
for it.
We're probably going to go. Daniel's got to get either to the airport, he's off out, so we've got quite a tight one this time. But that's good because we've got quite a lot to get through. I was going to say we've got quite a lot to unpack, but that was a cheesy segue, which I'm going to try to avoid. So
I like it.
Apologies for that one. So yes, we're back, and also we're going to be back next week. We've got a guest on. Kyle Erickson's with us next week, so we're back into the flow of things now, and it's business as usual. So the year has got off to a very rapid start for you boys over in Samsung land. I guess I should let you two have a chat about what's happened, because you're both at events this week, and then I'll chime in when I've got anything worthy to say. So.
Can we try, let's see if we can do this as a challenge. Can we try to go throughout the whole episode without mentioning AI once, apart from that one time?
I can't do it.
Okay, if we do that, from what I've gathered, and this is me looking at, and I was just saying before we started recording, I've watched Alex's videos. I've watched about 100 of the 300 that Daniel's uploaded this week. So I'm kind of, and we were just joking, my algorithm now, when I switch on at home, it's just Samsung S25. It's as if Apple doesn't exist. All I'm seeing is S25 videos because the algo thinks that's all I want to watch. So I've done a fair catching up. And maybe what I can do is just pull the ripcord and say what somebody, and as you know, I ain't got no beef with other phones at all. I just happen to like using Apple. That's by the by. But all I've kind of heard is, it's a bit of an S year. It's a bit of an upgrade year. Not much new.
You've been watching Marquez's video then?
One I watched. That's the first of his videos I watched in ages. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I watched some of his. I've watched a number to try and get a flavour. I've watched Sam's videos. I've watched a number to try and understand what's going on. And in defence, it's kind of like, well, what more can they bring to a phone if we're going to have new phones every year? So as that as an intro, what do you guys make of the S25?
You go first.
If we're talking base models, then the S25 and S25 Plus, absolutely the most incremental of upgrades. It's pretty much a chip bump, because everything else about those phones, the cameras, the display, the batteries, are all the same. I think the chip that's inside it, the 8 Elite for Galaxy, is the story. That's the big part, especially for those two base
the phones
models.
Across the range this year, right? The Elite.
Across the range. There's no Exynos split. It's all 8 Elite for Galaxy. So that, for me, for those phones, that's it. That's all there is to look forward to, is that chip. It does enable a lot of good things, but that's the main thing, is that. The S25 Ultra, there is more, but I can see why people are saying that from an external point of view, like not having the phone in their hands, that it looks like just an S year. But I think this is a phone that because I've had it for a few weeks already, this is a phone that I think you need to hold in your hands to really appreciate what has changed. Because it's lighter, it's thinner, it's got a different feel about it because it's narrower in the hand and it's softer with the curves on the rounded frame. There's just a different experience holding it with the Ultra versus the Ultra from last year. I think the people that are complaining about it, I don't know. They either haven't held it for long enough and haven't had it for long enough, or they just maybe don't appreciate the design that Samsung have done. I don't know.
I think you're right. The first time I picked it up, I mean, I haven't used it for a few weeks, but I've been shown a preview think a week or two before the launch. That was my first reaction to it. It was how, without looking at the phone, if you just look at the phone aesthetically, yes, you could probably say, it's a very, very similar to an iPhone, very similar to even before the S21, I guess. It was kind of going back full circle to the old designs. However, what you said about just holding the phone, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's actually, you can tell it's an Ultra because it does have that sort of expensive feel to it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You have to use it and feel it. Obviously, every year it's going to be faster. It's going to be slightly better in every area, but just the ergonomics aspect. By the way, I should disclaim here. Usually, I buy these phones every year, and I bought mine already, but for the first time in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years doing YouTube, Samsung actually gave me this phone to test. So the one I've got right now here is not mine.
So cool.
Not that it would change what I think about it, because I'm complaining about it as if it is the one I bought, but just so people don't get, oh my gosh, yeah, you sponsored or whatever. Yeah.
So kind of looking on aesthetically, and obviously, unlike a lot of the people that be watching or listen to this podcast, I've not actually set physical hands on it yet. It looks now, again, much more similar to the iPhone, which is because it's got that square edge. And I kind of like the look. The Samsung had that lovely rounded look, and it kind of, when I've been to Alex's and seen his, and when you were over in the UK, I kind of liked the way that the S24 looked, that rounded edge. Whereas now it does, I don't know, on video at least, it looks a lot more iPhone-esque. Is that fair?
Like I said, is the look. Yes, you could probably argue that it looks very similar because of the edges.
Especially if you're looking at it like this, right? You're looking at it like with the flat side.
Exactly.
That's an iPhone flat side.
Yeah.
But I think there's an intention of why they did it, because obviously they used to make the curved screens, right? And that was their thing. But then a lot of people said we want the bezels to be uniformed, we want the front display to be flat. So what other option do they sort of have? And the bezels on this are crazy. Like, it is a phenomenal thin border around the display, and you're literally just holding a screen. And I think if they had to curve the screen on that, you'd get accidental touches, and then people would complain again. So I'm fine with the flat sides. I like that there's still some sort of rounded element. Because last year it was a rounded, for Ultra here, last year was a rounded frame and a square corner. Whereas now it's a rounded corner and a square frame. Like this,
it's strange though. It doesn't, even though it's squarer, even though you've got the round corners, it doesn't feel as rounded. I mean, I don't know. It still feels quite sharp when you're holding it. It's not as soft and malleable as you. I don't know. The iPhone to me feels a little bit more like a pebble type device.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more rounded, the iPhone, compared to what the S25 Ultra is. And even the base models, the S25 and the Plus, they're also more rounded too. But Samsung said something in our briefing, not at Unpacked, but the week before, was that they designed it like this because customers have been saying they want a unified design language across the 3 models.
So all the phones are instantly recognizable.
So rather than 1 square and 2 rounded, they thought that people wanted a uniformed approach across the 3. And they said it was customer demand that asked for that, and that's why they did it, as opposed to just their own decision.
Yeah, it's funny how people are focusing on that, right? 'Cause I'm probably the first one to say how companies, and I've been saying this for years, how they're all becoming a little bit boring from a design perspective. But I think the last 2 years I stopped saying that, even with the iPhone, because it's like, people want that brand recognition, and I kind of understand from a marketing perspective. So I think you can't really be that much braver with designs these days. But it was the first day really that I took the phone out and used it for a full day of taking videos, photos, doing everything that I normally do.
Today, yeah.
For me, the biggest talking point, and we'll probably talk about it in a minute, apart from the video quality and whatever, but is the battery. It's early days and the battery is still learning, but wow. It feels to me like an S23 Ultra level. That's my experience so far in the last few days. I'm not sure, Daniel, if it's that good for you or not.
Well, I've only been had my second SIM in it, because I still can't shake this Fold Special Edition. Anyway, so I've had my second SIM in this, so I haven't been able to push it through. But when I get back to Australia, I'm going to switch to the other S25 Ultra I've got here and start to use it as my phone. So then I'll be able to really test. But the performance in terms of the leap over 8 Gen 3, man, some of the video editing tests I've been doing on camera, you can just see the immediate improvement in the output. So I think the ceiling of performance is higher. And if they've matched that with efficiency, man, we're going to get a good performance life out of this phone. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's early days, but the signs are, I mean, every phone that we pick up, whether it's the iPhone or the Samsung or the Google or whatever, you've got that first week where you're downloading stuff or whatever. You can kind of already tell when the battery is not going to be superb. Like the S23 Ultra for me is the benchmark of good battery that would last a full day, a busy day, and go almost to the half day of the next day.
And why was that so good? Was it just the
like
synergy of the chip, and was it just everything came together on the S23? I know I've heard you guys saying that the 23 was just the zenith.
For me, it was, yeah.
Why so? What made it so good then?
The battery,
the combination of
everything,
chip and I think the S24 Ultra pushed a lot more power to things like the display and the camera tech and the features, whereas I think the S23 Ultra didn't have as much of that.
There was a great balance, yeah.
It was a good balance. It was perfectly sort of weighted across the board. Whereas I think now they've kind of struck that again, because everything I've heard, we had a forum yesterday with Qualcomm, where Qualcomm was in the room, I should say, and they talked about how they designed the 4 Galaxy chip in conjunction with Samsung to build things like the visual engine for the display to make it a bit more efficient. But it's custom. It's designed exclusively for Samsung as opposed to just being the 8 Elite off the shelf. So there is some extra stuff in the S25 Ultra with the chip that is specifically sort of custom built to work with the Samsung hardware a lot better and a lot more efficiently. So I think we're going to see, a lot of people get wowed by the battery. And instead of this first impressions being, oh, this phone's the same, they'll actually, as they use it, see the improvements over time.
Yeah, that's my feel as well at the moment. The other thing that I'm actually a little bit disappointed with, because I haven't really tested many brands outside of the usual Google, Samsung, and Apple, right, for the last few years. This year, I just a couple of weeks before Unpacked, I was looking at the Honor, which I've still got it here. Again, they sent it to me for a test. I've got to send it back. But this is the Honor Magic 7 Pro. And it's got that same chip without the 4 Galaxy, right? So without the overclocking that they do. So what I like about what Honor did, and I think OnePlus, Xiaomi, they all do as well, is they added modes in their cameras to kind of fully utilize that chip. Looking at Samsung, it's like they haven't really changed a lot of those modes to be able to push that chipset yet. There are things like, a lot of people are talking about, it's a huge talking point, which is this shutter lag. Honor, for example, and I think OnePlus as well, they've created a mode just for that type of footage. So that, if you want to take photos of something moving quickly, go to this mode here that they call it whatever. But it takes a burst of photos and it freezes the frame. I mean, it can be anything, like a fast train or someone running a bike or whatever it is. And I think that's the bit that I think I wish Samsung had done on the camera modes. Because if you look at the camera modes that we've got there today, it's pretty much the same as we had it on One UI 6.
Presume that could be a software update, though, could it not?
It could. It's funny you say something like that. Yesterday, again, in this briefing that we had, this forum, they were talking about conservation and sustainability. But apparently they've been doing things with like deep sea divers who have like been cleaning up the ocean. And they developed a special mode for their cameras called ocean mode.
The ocean mode, yeah.
Ocean mode. I'm like, what the heck? Why haven't we got? Yeah. Why can't I have this? Because apparently it's the engineers designed it so it balances white balance and shutter speed to capture the ocean clearer. I'm like, so they can really do this stuff. They have the capability. I think it's just the balance that they try and find. I don't know, and it's weird. They also used to have a mode like that. They called it sports mode. It was like on the S4 or something.
Yeah, Honor did just a little running man on almost like the action mode and on Apple for video, they've got a similar thing for photos now. Just that little toggle on the, you don't have to go into a mode. It's just a little toggle on the screen. That's so good, and he uses that new chip. It's so fast and so good and so responsive.
It does do log video recording now, though.
I was going to bring that up, but I thought, how can I bring that up without looking slightly smug? But yeah.
So just before we go into that, because that is a big, I mean, that for me is probably top 3 of the features that are coming. But I think in Samsung's defense to what I just said, I was just playing around with, you can now, Apple have this thing on the camera control button, whatever they call it, right? Where you can, on the fly, kind of change the color grading of your photos. Like you can do this sliding fancy thing.
Yeah.
The way Samsung implemented that with the different color temperature, different auto balance, white balance, different, is way more user friendly, I think. Because again, it's just one button on the screen. There's no physical button to press, and then sliders for each thing that you want to change, and you see what's happening. I'll see if I can get a B-roll for this so we can add it to the podcast here. But I thought it was just a really nice way of doing it. So I think we need more of those software features in camera app to really utilize the power of the chipset.
And is it recording in ProRes when it's in log or not? No, because of course that's proprietary to Apple. So
thing,
yeah. So the file size isn't ridiculously. I mean, it's going to be bigger, but it's not. It's manageable.
No,
it is manageable.
And editing it is buttery smooth. I use my Sony log, so it's not really fine tuned for Samsung log, but it was pretty damn close. I mean, I used it in my intro for my video, thanks to Daniel, because Daniel went to San Francisco and he got the bridge. I was like, please, that was amazing, and so thanks for that, mate. Because it's a huge, for me, it's a huge.
So recording 265, then is that the codec it's using?
I think you can choose. Actually, I saw the setting 264 or 265.
It's log only works in HEVC. If you change it to 264, it doesn't. You can't use it.
Yeah. So makes sense.
But the high bitrate video toggle can be used with log, so it does record a little bit.
I think I've seen something there. Well. Yeah, honestly, super happy with that. The fact that it doesn't moan about, you don't have an external SSD attached to it as well, is awesome. I think that was probably one of the reasons that a lot of people, including myself, would always keep an iPhone as a content creator sort of go-to for videos, because you can, with ProRes and log, you can, at a pinch, replace a professional camera. Now, I don't know if I need an iPhone anymore, because that is one of the key reasons why I kept it.
Have you two guys chatted as to how similar the events were? Because Alex, you were the one in London, and Daniel, you're in San Jose.
Same, yeah. No, we're watching a stream of the. We're like the poor cousins looking at all the the cool stuff. No, to be fair, I mean, Mr. Who's the Boss was in the same place I was, so Mark Ellis was there. It's an awesome experience, regardless, right? Because especially for networking, because the device is a device. Like in my case, I had seen a preview before. I was lucky enough to be given one at the event. So I used that time really to talk to people. There's a chap called Matt Talks Tech. Big channel, over 1 million subscribers. Got chatting to him there. I love those events because of that, because of the connections that you make. And I can't even imagine in the scale size, right? You in the same room as Marquez, and I saw a picture of Daniel with the CEO of Samsung. So it's kind of,
I have a good story
it's a different
about that.
scale.
I have a good story.
Let's hear the story.
So,
Let's hear the story.
Apart from
is it a podcast story?
I'll get to that in a second. I also agree with the networking. Like, obviously, I got to see the S25 Edge like up close. It was like right there in front of me. But I also met Pete. I met Pete Matheson ahead of our hands-on session. He walked over and said hello, and cool. So that was cool. Sam Beckman from Australia, although he was on my flight, so we're mates now.
What a channel
Haley
that is,
from Hale's World.
Haley's World,
she was there. TA Tech Tips. He's a TikToker. He's got 3 million. Nick is his name. He's from the UK as well.
Nice.
So it was just nice to meet all these people. I got recognized a few times, which was also
awesome.
Kind of cool. But the TMO stuff, because I'm here with Sam Mobile, right? Danny, the owner of Sam Mobile, flew me over, and we're here together.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so connected within the world of Samsung because he's been going to Unpacked for like 12 to 13 years. S3 was his first. Anyway, I'm standing there talking to Haley from Hale's World and Pete Matheson. I think Pete was there, and Nick from TA Tech Tips. And then the head of PR from Samsung just comes and whisks me away with Danny. Well, we walk up the stairs into this private room, and there's TM Rowe just sitting there waiting to meet us. And cool. We shook hands. We said hello. We talked about the launch and Unpacked. And then I saw he was using a Fold Special Edition. So I pulled mine out and said, hey, we've got the same phone. And he was surprised. He goes, how do you have one? How have you got one of those? And then I said, oh, well, I got hooked up with one, and he asked me for feedback. I told him what I think of the phone.
I know some people.
And then we got a photo. And then we got a photo.
Connections.
And then, yeah. So that was a really surreal experience to just sort of be. And then he was saying how much he loves Sam Mobile. And I'm like, okay.
So when I saw that picture, the first thing that I thought was, I can see you going back to Samsung. Has that thought ever crossed your mind at all? Or are you now a Samsung content creator?
It depends on the capacity. Like, I wouldn't go back.
If they offered you a content creation related role, which there could be many, right?
There could be many.
Would you consider it?
It's something I'd have to. It depends on the location. If it was like maybe in Europe or somewhere like that, I could be open to it. I wouldn't do it in Australia again. But
that was my first thought, because I was like, obviously you enjoyed working there. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But the thing is, I feel like I get treated better now by them. It's a weird thing. It's a weird sort of juxtaposition. But yeah, the whole Unpacked week this week has just been a whirlwind. It's been phenomenal. It's a really nice event to go to if you'd love the Samsung sort of product the same way I do. It was surreal being there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it must be hard, and we always say this about the Apple event, right? For people who attend those events, it must be really hard to say anything bad about the device. You've got to be honest, right? Because I'm in that camp as well. I didn't go to San Jose, but I would have gone. Would I be as critical, or I don't know? Yeah. I think I just find it's an interesting aspect, because we talked about it before, and I don't know what you think about it.
So when they brief you, because I know we were speaking just before you joined us, Alex. We were speaking. I think Daniel said the day before there was a press briefing, kind of a pre-briefing kind of thing. So at that point, again, is there any kind of naughty step?
No.
Look, be kind to us. You're here at our request.
Not in my case, anyway. But
not at all.
Right.
Samsung are more on the lines of, like, what struck me was how much they want feedback, but they don't just want positive feedback. They want you to be honest. Like TM Rowe asked me about the Fold Special Edition. He goes, do you have any feedback about the phone? And I was in front of him like, well, do I just say how much I love it, or do I be honest? And I said, well, this camera should have been under the display, and it should support the S Pen. And that's what but they like honest feedback. Like this week, I made a video about the S Pen not supporting.
I was just going to ask, because they disabled the Bluetooth functionality, haven't they, on that? So you could use a remote for the camera. Was that right? You could.
Correct.
Yeah.
So their findings
Look at me watching my Samsung content, eh?
Their findings were that there was less than 1% of people used it. That was their metric for why they removed it, and it helped them slim down the phone and make it lighter, because they didn't have to put the charging coil in, and then they didn't have to put the Bluetooth in the pen. In my video, I said they shouldn't have done it. So it doesn't change the fact that I can still be critical, even though, because they should have kept it in. It was a feature, even though no one used it. It was nice to have it there.
A unique feature, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, the minute that they said the phone was lighter, but it looked pretty much the same size, and it could actually be heavier when you look at, the design. I did wonder, and I think I mentioned in my video, without knowing that it was the S Pen, that helped with that reduction in weight. I did say, it's like, I wonder what compromises they had to kind of strike here, because...
And that was the obvious one.
Personally, I miss the camera shutter ability. I don't really care too much about the air gestures.
That's the one for me too, yeah.
But it's the ability to take a selfie, or, as a solo creator, there are plenty of times when And of course, people will say, "Oh, you can just wave at the phone. You can speak to it now." I mean, there's different ways of doing it, but it was a nice way to do it with a pen. And I will miss it. At the same time, I appreciate the phone being lighter. Is like I said, it was the first thing I noticed. And it's interesting. I did try to get the S24 Ultra pen into the S25.
Does work, yeah.
As they say to me, I'm Brazilian, right? Whole is a goal, they say, and it didn't work.
A phrase, once you've heard it, you can never forget it, right?
I remember.
How many times can I bring that to conversation this weekend?
You gotta try it.
Well, again, that fits in nicely with that phrase.
You went in far enough, and I think we'll leave it there.
I call this the S-hole, because that's where the S pen goes.
There you go.
It's taken quite a turn, certainly, isn't it? I mean, that seemed to me to be one of those unique features. It's kind of, because again, like you said, there are gestures, but somehow if you've got a physical haptic, you kind of know you've done it, and that sounded like a good idea. But equally, I suppose numbers speak, and I haven't compared the weight of the 16 to the 25 Ultra. I'm assuming, I think this is about 230 odd grams. I seem to remember the 16 Pro Max.
I'll get it up. Hold on. How heavy?
Because again, I haven't had hands on with it, so I'd just be interested to know, because I'm guessing the dimensions again. What's a 6.9 inch screen you've got on there?
Yeah,
6.9.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I'm thinking is, it worries me a little bit, because if they see that, because there was less than 1% people were using it.
227 for the iPhone 16 Pro Max.
Yeah.
How much?
227. 227.
Right. Yeah. And yours is, the Ultra is
218.
Okay. Oh, so it's even lighter.
It does feel lighter. Yeah, it's amazing. What I was going to say is, it does worry me that strategy and the way they went about it, because if there's less than 1% using DeX, for example, and I'm definitely one of those 1%. Yeah, would they do the same from a software removal perspective? Because behind software there'll be a team of developers. There'll be lots of cost reduction potential.
Well,
I'm hoping they don't adopt that as a thing for other cleanups.
I found an interesting bit of information out this week, that the S Pen, for example, has about a 20% user base, but there's a metric that Samsung also measure of people who intend to use the S Pen but don't use it often, which was much higher. So even though 20% use it regularly, there's like maybe 50% of people that like the idea of the pen being there. So I feel like with DeX, it's probably going to be a similar thing. Like maybe it's got a small user base, but the idea of having DeX there is what keeps it. And I think Samsung already did trim a part of DeX anyway, the DeX for Windows.
Yeah, I don't like that, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I do worry about it, because DeX is one thing, right? But there could be removing things from the phone that makes the phone what it is. I mean, the S Pen is what makes the Ultra for me, because otherwise it's just another slab phone. So yeah, I hope it comes back, actually, the Bluetooth functionality. I hope they find a way of just bringing it back.
Same.
I don't know, we've done quite well to avoid AI so far in, and I know it's getting almost a little bit tedious now. And I saw, Alex, you put up a video saying, I'm done with AI, but except for this. I mean, I've long been on that sort of thing. I'm not a big AI user, and this push towards the only thing separating phones. And we know that Apple Intelligence has got its head up its arse at the moment. Where that's going to land and end up, who knows?
That's a mess.
Am I missing it? Not really. The writing tools that are on the Mac are useless. I honestly hoped I would stop using Grammarly and be able to use the writing tools. They just don't work. So, the one instance it could have helped me, it hasn't. But outside of that, and again, of the videos I've watched, there does look to be one or two useful, presumably not finished articles yet, because they're quite early in development, but kind of where you can speak to your settings and say, turn on my Bluetooth, and it just recognizes it across the whole device. That I would prefer that than a lot of the other, drawing a crown on a frog. That to me is useful.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What we had yesterday, we had an AI tech briefing with Samsung yesterday. As much as I was like almost asleep in some of them, it's actually turned out to be quite useful for this discussion. Samsung spoke a lot about their vision for AI isn't just feature based, because there was a lot of just features of AI being stuck in. Like, they didn't use the word gimmick, but I feel like that's what they were hinting at. They want to make AI like a seamless life integration. And I think you saw a bit of that at Unpacked. Like the now brief is like a contextual thing that sort of guides you as opposed to just being a feature like removing someone from a photo.
Here's
and
a
then the stuff you spoke about with the settings, like that, and the gallery searching, like that's a real contextual thing that supports your life as opposed to just a feature that you use.
Yeah. So here's an example, and I'm kind of hoping that this is actually as a result of the now brief just being that good. Yesterday, I used all Samsung stuff on my watch. I went for a run, and I had the phone with me as well. And I recorded everything. I did everything that I normally do. And yeah, today he said at one point, I think it was the midday brief because it gives you different time of the day briefings, and that does change depending on what you're doing. And I noticed that he said, at one point he said, it's a good time to go running now before it starts raining. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
100%.
how does he know I care about running? And that was just one day of learning. I hope that's not a coincidence that maybe he just said that to everybody. But I thought it was cool that if he is learning that I went for a run yesterday and he's recommending I go at a specific time today, I thought that was a nice, all right, this is actually, I think the word they use is companion. And that's been my sort of bugbear with AI since the beginning. I mean, when I started seeing the benefit of it with the Pixel, I think it was a Pixel 6 maybe, that the assistant became so good at kind of almost predicting what you want to do. So I see a lot of potential in there. And I think that's kind of where, as you said, David, AI is great, but how is it going to be useful to me? Because doodling and doing things that, transforming a picture into a cartoon is just a bit of a party trick.
Yeah, exactly
it's
that.
useful, productive stuff and making me more
I
effective.
don't know if that's because we're kind of boring farts that use our devices to actually make content either about or with. So maybe we're using it in a different way. I don't know. But I was talking to somebody much younger than me yesterday. I know that's not hard to do. But equally, I was saying, well, he's about 30 odd. And I said, how much AI do you honestly use? And he said, no, I use ChatGPT for some course. He's doing an Open University course. So occasionally I use it for some suggestions on that. But really, unless you're talking about smart homes where you ask Google to turn on the lights, no, not an awful lot. It's interesting. There's definitely been a pushback that came in with this huge thunder effect. We got AI for everything, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, well, actually, we quite like doing some things ourselves. We like to be in control of some of the things ourselves.
I do want it to be more intuitive. I mean, I tried to use Bixby in the last couple of days. It's just not responsive. You don't know if I think with Siri at least, and I'm pretty sure if I say it now, my phone will start.
It's going to fire up,
at least it's a little bit more responsive. On the other hand, I'm not sure that means it's probably listening for too many things that it shouldn't. But with Bixby, it's just, I don't know, it takes a few seconds for it to respond sometimes. It feels to me like it relies on the network connection that you've got. So I don't know, I probably need to test a bit more.
All you need to know about Bixby is that the long press on the power button no longer launches Bixby; it launches Gemini.
It's Gemini now, yeah.
Because Samsung are deeply in bed with Google. We're now with that sort of
wasn't
stuff.
it Sam in his video that said, I actually like Bixby?
He likes Bixby,
yeah. I thought so, because I've watched so many bloody Samsung videos this week, but I'm sure it was Sam who said that. Yeah. So he actually likes it then as a voice assistant.
He likes it. I think, him and his wife, they can speak Korean, and I think Bixby's been very optimized for Korean as well. But he does do most of his stuff in English.
Right.
But he loves the phone control stuff that it can do, as opposed to just being an assistant that searches the internet. But Gemini, the way that's going to work now is it's going to be integrated into Samsung apps. There's like deep integration between Gemini and Samsung Notes, Samsung Internet, or Samsung Calendar. There's a lot more that it can do. Like if you say save this to my notes, really cool. it'll put a recipe that it sees on the screen and put it into your Samsung Notes stuff. Like it's got that.
I tried that yesterday. So I tried to say something like, I don't know, pick up the next 3 Liverpool games and add them to my calendar. But I think my phone is confused now because I already have Gemini Pro, whatever it is, Advanced or whatever it is. So it's probably confused because it's not the actual one that, what do they call it? Gemini Plus? Is that the Samsung version?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm trying to use features that are not quite there yet.
When we picked up our sample, there was like a media, not line, but they gave us like a spiel saying that, a lot of the stuff with Gemini and Samsung apps aren't connected yet, and there's an update coming on February the 7th for these samples that will push that out. So that stuff's not apparently operational.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
So two other things we would definitely talk about.
The Edge. You have to talk about the Edge.
I was going to say, we've got to talk about the Edge, and of course, Apple.
I was going to make another joke there, but I think that's enough innuendos for today. No Edge.
They teased it. They took us to the Edge, and then they gave it. That was it.
So again, it's this whole thing about what one does, the other does, who knows. So Apple reportedly this year have got the Air coming out, which is going to be thin and have one or two cameras on the back. It's basically the same as a Samsung phone. Personally, I'm kind of thinking, well, Johnny, I've tried thin things and it didn't go too well on battery life, and they tended to bend quite a lot. But hey, and also
we're
of
all going to
course,
try and bend it, aren't we? We're all going to become
he's on it today, isn't he? And also, of course, have Apple given you the Vision Pro as well? Is that what's going on there? You've got a headset now that looks...
The Android XR, yeah.
What's it called? It's got a really odd name, isn't it?
Well, it's at the moment, it's just Android XR because it still hasn't launched yet. They're basically just... They showed the headset on at the Unpacked event in the Experience Zone, and you could see it, but you couldn't touch it. So... It was just sitting there. You couldn't play with it. Couldn't put it on.
There was a time when they're saying it could be released. Do you know when the schedule is?
No, nothing.
Right.
Again, yesterday in this forum that we had, Samsung, the guy that's responsible for bringing the XR platform to life, and the Google guy who's also responsible for bringing it to life were next to each other. They apparently started talking about this 10 years ago. That was they collaborated on the glasses, and then also Samsung talked about how they had the Gear VR, the virtual reality headset. So there's a history there, but I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that the Apple Vision Pro accelerated things a little bit for XR and that headset coming out.
I wonder if that's a problem though, because clearly the gap between that being such almost like when you see a concept car, right? It's like, okay, that looks amazing, almost ready to go, but in reality, it's not. It hasn't got the steering wheel. It hasn't got mirrors or whatever. It's a similar thing with that, I think. I like where Meta is going with it because it's a little bit more, probably less. It's not going to be as feature rich as those XR devices, but they're more useful. I mean, I use the Ray-Ban glass the other day. It was like, I love this.
If you spotted it Unpacked, there was one slide at Unpacked.
I saw
the category of devices. There was a foldable. There was a triple foldable. There was a headset, and then a pair of glasses. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, Samsung are teasing the fact that they're working on future form factors, and that must be what it looks like. So
the trifold is crazy. I was talking to
a guy next to me had the Mate one, the Huawei one, at Unpacked. He had it, and I touched it, and they felt incredible. Like the hinge on it was really strong and sturdy, and it felt weird when closed. Like you could feel the gaps and the sort of things touching each other, and that felt a bit odd. But when open, it looked sensational,
like an iPad Pro or whatever. Yeah,
almost.
I asked that specific question to Honor. They had an European guy in there, like a president or something. I said, foldables. I don't know. Over here in Europe, they don't seem that popular, and I'm sure it's the same in the US. And I asked, is that do you see that growth? And the answer was actually, in Honor's case, no. A lot of the focus for European will be more kind of slab phones and maybe the flip, but not so much on foldables. But foldables are huge in Asia.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, I mean, up in London, as you probably both know, you never see anybody on a foldable.
It's really rare.
Yeah, they just haven't caught on at all. I guess they're going to keep banging the drum now. That Samsung are leading away. They're clearly invested heavily in it.
They're quite expensive still. Yeah.
So then on to the Edge, which again you couldn't touch. Is that right? It was a look not touch.
When the Experience Zone opened, no one went anywhere else. They apparently stopped letting people in.
That's security, didn't they? Like stopping you touching it.
Yeah. There was a guy that was positioned in the middle, and I was like, "Excuse me, can you just move so I can get a photo?" He goes, "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to move." I'm like, "Okay."
That's a shift, isn't it? That is a shift.
Yeah. Someone did come and tap him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, actually, you can move." So they moved him, but I got some pretty good shots of it.
I saw that
of the phone itself. It is thin. No
Is it
one will
larger?
tell you any specs. No, I don't know. You honestly, no one knows.
Right.
There's no all the leaked information that came out was completely wrong. Completely, all the renders, all the camera information,
It was called a Slim,
all
wasn't it?
wrong. Yeah, it was called the Slim. It had 3 cameras, and it was looked like an S25 but slimmer. But that's not the case. It looks almost like an iPhone 16 from the back, like the base model 16. But yeah, it's like razor thin. Like I had a side profile shot where it was just crazy.
Which I think what the iPhone Air is reported to be as well. I mean, again, apparently it's not going to be as feature rich as the Pro and Pro Max, but it's going to be more expensive because it's thin. I don't know. I mean, come later in the year, if that is true, I'll have to decide
It's
where.
strange. Yeah. I mean, I do wonder because Samsung already has a very extensive like lineup. So, we've got Plus, we've got the other. Where is that going to fit? Similar with Apple, right? It's like they already have the iPhone 16 Plus or whatever. I don't know. Is thin the next trend?
Well, thin's going back again, isn't it? Because we've had thin. We've done the thin phones.
But
I
then,
think
We've had the small phones. Now we're big phones, and I don't know.
then
But
the
thing
battery
is,
will be crap as well, right? It's like
yeah,
it
exactly.
depends on the battery tech that they're using. If they are upgrading the battery tech to something new, and maybe getting more out of it, that could be part of it. I don't know. I think the market, everyone complains about phones being the same. Well, not everyone, not us, but like, MKBHD with his videos, The Verge saying, oh, it's just the same phone. Like, if they want something different, this is something different. This is different. Like, this is, and I think this will be like the Ultra. This will be a phone that you need to hold to truly appreciate it. Looking at
that's
it,
such a great point. Yeah.
you see it's thin, but you're like, yeah, it's great. But if you hold it, you'll feel like you're holding a phone from 10 years ago, but with the tech of now. Like, that's what's going to be crazy about
I kind of know what you mean. And Alex, you'll get this because I think you and I both do the same thing of resting an iPad in front of a teleprompter to look at the actual camera. It's the only time I ever get the iPad out of its case. And every time I get it out of the smart case, oh man, that is so thin and gorgeous to hold. I wish I could just hold that by itself more. You'll just forget. So it's obviously the same with that phone. It's going to have that kind of tactile. You just want to hold it and feel it. And I know, Alex, you were saying probably the first year you're not going to have a case on your phone.
Yeah, which is a risky thing for me to say because
I was going to say,
I actually dropped the iPhone today. It had a case on, but it destroyed the corner of the case.
Right.
So if that had been the S25 Ultra, which I don't have a case for, it would have probably destroyed it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just would feel ashamed to put a case on. I'll probably try. Maybe I like the idea of having a MagSafe capability. Like when I'm driving or I don't know, using here at the desk, but most of the time I just enjoy
Same.
It's a weird one. And I had that with the Fold as well. The Fold I have to put on a case because I will freaking drop it. But I only do it when I go out. At home or here in the studio, I just use it without I go naked, as they say.
We had enough of you this week. You're double entendres there, honestly. I'm running risk of going out of control here. I'm going to really back in.
Do you want to hear, at risk of making it worse, I always say,
go on then.
You can cut this out. I like my phone.
No, this stays. Whatever you're about to say,
in.
I'm no editing. This is one take, so just bear that in mind. No editing.
I like my phones like I like my women. Naked. Done.
There we go.
There you go. I've seen your videos. Sometimes you put the Fold to take your photos on top of a brick wall. It's like, oh my god, that pains me. But clearly, it doesn't really make a big difference.
So there's a couple of things. I know we're on a tight time one. A couple of things I just wanted to mention. I haven't mentioned this to you guys, but we said a few weeks ago because it's been a month or so about the whole honey issue that was, on PayPal.
Oh, yes.
We were going to talk about that. I'll let you talk about that one, Alex. And then also, Daniel, since we've last done a podcast, you've turned your back on going Mac Mini. Do you just want to fill us in why?
Yes.
So, well, look, the main reason is my wife said no.
You chickened out.
My wife said no. She goes, no, you're being ridiculous.
That was before you said you like your phones like your women. I mean, if she'd heard that statement, I mean, honestly, you ain't going home now. Lots will be changed.
She won't listen to this. She said no, and I'm like, okay. And then I sort of slept on it a bit more, and then I used the laptop again, and I tried using it off power, and it actually held up okay, better than I was expecting it to. So then I just sort of realized, you know what? I can get through this without having to spend more money. And then I went on my cruise, then I've come back and I've taken it away here, and it's done really, really well.
Life is good.
Life is good. And I think if Samsung brings out a Snapdragon laptop where Premiere Pro supports it, I think I'll probably go to that, and then I'll probably have some parity. But at the moment, the Mac Mini's off in the car rearview mirror, and haven't thought about it since.
You chickened out. I think that's a good point, though, because I tried for a month to be completely no Android, just to see, because I've been in that world before creating content, just being complete. Everything was Apple. But recently, obviously, since I started making videos, I started to try other things and enjoyed it. And I think I don't know, a lot of my views became just opinion-based rather than fact-based. So I wanted to really, like walk in someone's shoes, like in an Apple ecosystem for a month. It's all right. How good is he really? For me, it just doesn't do as much as he promises. But I can't live. I mean, I probably can, but I would struggle to live without the Mac. So I think the Mac for me is, as a content creator, it feels to me like I would be losing an arm or something. It would be really painful to go through. But I think it would be fair to do it, because I've done one like completely Apple for 1 month. I think I did it for 52 days in the end. And I got a lot of slack for it, because people, oh my God, you're just hating on Apple. I'm literally just sharing my experience. But I think it would be interesting to see how I would feel, just go completely Windows and Android for a month with not touching the MacBook. I'd have to get a Windows laptop or use my gaming PC to edit videos. And I can already see that would be the struggle. But I do wonder how much of a struggle that would be.
Well, Sam Beckman, he uses a Windows PC, gaming PC, for his editing. And he's got, you see all his crazy effects that he does with After Effects. Like he's got quite a bit going on. He doesn't have a Mac either.
I started on a Samsung laptop, actually.
Oh,
but yeah,
the old Samsung laptops were.
It was painful. Yeah, it was 2 videos I did. I was like, no, I need a Mac. No. That's right.
And just before we talk about the whole PayPal and Honey thing, all that business, I have actually bought Samsung SSD this week because Alex, I've been sent. My best friends now are Acasis. I mean, they're sending me.
I say
goodie
Acasis,
packs.
By the way. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah,
tomato.
Those enclosures. So I have bought Samsung SSDs. I bought the Evo Pros. I've got 4 terabytes. I've got 4 terabyte on the Mac Mini, and I've got 2 terabyte on the iMac.
So just for people, we'll show a little bit.
That's the
I think
one.
This is
That's
the
the
latest. Sorry, my face, right?
Is that the Thunderbolt 5 one?
This is Thunderbolt 5. So the Thunderbolt 4 is great as well. I mean, for most stuff, I mean, I edit all my videos mostly on Thunderbolt 4. But what I like about these is that there's no tool required. They're pretty. They keep cool.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not good.
Yeah, the fact that you can add I don't know, $200. I think you can. I've got 4 terabytes on this one.
That cost me 300 quid this week. 4 terabytes cost me 300 quid.
Like, you can't beat it. And it's as fast. I think in this case, if you use the Mac Mini Pro or whatever, it's actually faster than the internal storage, right?
It is, yeah. And I did a video I was making this week. I said if I'd looked to put 4 terabytes on the M4 Pro Mac Mini, it would have cost me £1,300. And that cost me £300.
I just refuse to buy. I mean, I know it's more convenient to have internal storage, but I've been saying this to you for a while, right? Don't give Apple more money or anybody.
No, I won't. No, these have changed me. This Thunderbolt 5 thing's so damn fast. I mean, it's as if I'm editing off of the Mac. It's brilliant. And the fact that, if that ever becomes full, I can just pop it out, mark it up at a certain date range, and off I go again. For
video edit, for even 4K 60 video editing, you won't see too much of a difference.
No.
Even on Thunderbolt 4.
No.
So I think that
I'm converted.
It's...
Yep. So before we wrap up then, let's talk about this thing that kicked off just before Christmas where it turned out creators' money was being stolen. I think, Alex, this one's your...
Yeah, it's kind of old news, so we won't spend too much time. But I think it's important to talk about because it kind of screws everyone. I know it's a lot of the bigger creators, including Marquez, who were promoting this thing called Honey, and I think they're owned now by PayPal. I'm not sure they still exist. I personally never been hit by one of those ads. Somehow I managed to avoid it. But
Mr. Beast, I saw them on Mr. Beast a lot.
Mr. Beast, yeah. Pretty much every massive channel, and someone did an amazing video. We'll put a link to that video, kind of almost doing a full dossier on the whole issue. and there was hundreds and hundreds of videos being promoted by this company, basically getting people to install this thing on their browser. And when you go to buy something, ideally you would, the promise was that you would find the better deals for you, and it will give you like a vouchers and coupons or whatever automatically. But in reality, it wasn't doing that at all. It was basically stripping the creator's code. So, let's say we're promoting, I don't know, Shopify or whatever. If I promote it, Daniel promotes it, I get the money if you buy through my link. I get like a commission, and Daniel will get the commission if you put it through his link. There are clever ways of doing this. Sometimes people go out, it's the person who clicked first that would get the commission. And other times, in most cases, actually, is the last click. And that's the strategy that Honey was using, is the last click sort of setting that basically say, when people go to on their toolbar and go, right, find me a better deal, they would remove mine or Daniel's code or whoever's code was in there, add their own, and basically the creator gets nothing. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been doing this for 5 years. And I do remember vividly Amazon, even when I had less than 10,000 subscribers, being like 500 quid a month or whatever, in terms of revenue. It's not been that good for a long time. It's really gone down. I put that down to my poor salesmanship. But I think when you think about it, right, it's like if everyone is using this bloody toolbar, then you're not getting anything, So I think it's a huge problem. I think I'm hoping that it gets enough attention that forces them to maybe track back or whoever used it to give it back to the original creators. But that's a wishful thinking.
There's a legal case from Legal Eagle who's put together a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
But there's a second part to that too. The second part is once sort of it started becoming popular, they went to brands and said, hey, we know you don't want your best discount on show. Why don't you give us like a worse discount code and we'll promote that so you don't lose much money, but the customer still thinks they're saving enough money. So like if instead of it being like a 15% discount code that we found from somewhere else, you generate a 5% one and we'll promote that in. And then that's the one that they get. And then you don't lose 10%. And then you just give us a cut. Like
I just can't believe that.
Mental,
how that is legal.
Absolutely mental that they could just
that's
do
basically
that.
stealing, isn't it?
It is totally. Particularly if we're doing the work and we've been asked to put a promo code in or something, so we've done our end of the bargain, and passive income is a part of what we do, and hopefully generate a little bit of money from. And suddenly that's being ripped away clearly without us knowing, and without, more importantly, the person that thinks they're supporting the creator. They think they're actually helping the channel out.
It's
And
systematically
the creators
evil
as well. Yeah.
People would have been in a room talking about how they can maximize
Make this a business
their
model.
earnings. Yeah, right. We're going to override any extra discount code that's already been in there, and they probably didn't think about creators, or maybe they just didn't have that as front of mind. But their whole thing was, I don't care what discount code is in there, ours will go over the top. We'll get the commission. And then when the brand started complaining, they were like, how can we work this for us? Well, actually, why don't you generate cheaper discount codes or worse discount codes, and we won't find the better ones, and we'll use that, and then we'll take a cut that way.
Yeah.
It's like double dipping and then stealing all in the same time. Like it's evil that they thought about that, and then someone went, like where's their legal department to say no, don't do that? Why have they not got a legal department that draw up the contracts that actually you guys aren't protected here?
They probably do, but their remit was make sure that this is watertight. There's obviously a loophole that they found. Yeah. So it in theory is legal, but if you look at the optics,
it's not illegal. It's immoral.
It's immoral, and basically you're stealing, right? It's like you're taking money out of creators and putting it in your pocket. That's just like,
well, it hasn't lasted. They're now being found out, and it's interesting to see. Like I can understand the point of the creators who are backtracking from Honey and because they promoted it. But the thing is, they've already been paid by Honey. Like they paid them already.
Several times. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's if you imagine that these creators
was only twice, and he removed the snippets. But Mr. Beast, whenever I watched the Mr. Beast video, it was honey. Like it was Linus Tech Tips, honey. Like, and they would have been paid substantial amounts of money.
I'll imagine, yeah.
Mr. Beast
And they
has
might
disclosed
say-
before.
Yeah,
Mr. Beast has had to create his own products because brands can't afford
can't afford
slot
it.
in this
So you
kind,
can,
right? So
you can
it's
only
six
imagine
figure
how much
per
they were
slot.
paying him.
Hundreds of thousands.
like-
Yeah.
So they've made their money from them already. It's easy for them to say, "Oh, yeah, we won't work with them again." Like, of course you won't. You've already taken all of their money, like, and promoted them.
Yeah.
It's crazy that was allowed to go on for so long. I'm glad that it got exposed now, so people were. But the thing is, there's still probably people out there who don't know about it and will still use it.
Oh yeah, there'll be millions of people still using
Yeah, it's
it.
only because it's our space. We read about it. We know about
Yeah.
it.
Once that plugin is installed on the browser, how many times do you go and review your plugins, right?
Exactly.
Never.
So I know this one's been a little bit different. We haven't talked much about YouTube, but I've got a feeling it'll be different with Carl next week because we're going to be asking him lots of questions about his channel, his growth, and so on. So we'll go back to that. There's plenty to talk about. I've got some advertiser stories to mention as well, or potential advertiser stories to mention. So all back to normal next week, and then it'll be back to a fortnight after that. So we've got to let you go. I think you're off somewhere now, aren't you, Daniel?
Yeah, Danny and I are going
Places to
into San Francisco just to take some photos with the S25 Ultra just to get
As you do.
some camera snaps, camera samples, and then airport tonight to fly home, to be home by
14-hour
Sunday
flight,
morning.
did you say?
Yep.
Oh, enjoy
And
that.
I jumped forward in time 18 hours. So I leave Friday night here, I land Sunday morning back home.
By the way, I just noticed something, Daniel, on the S25 Ultra. I'm not sure if it was just me, but because we're all, every single time, there's always a challenge to film a screen, right? Either with a smartphone or with a camera. The S25 Ultra, if you're not watching a video, if you're not doing anything that is requiring 120 hertz, you see that I haven't seen this before on the S24 or even any Ultra, but you see those bars going across the screen now because I think the refresh rate. I think they are dropping the refresh rate really aggressively now, which is probably why the battery is so good as well. But one of the reasons why it's so good. But definitely, so watch out for that because if you're recording the screen on the S24 Ultra and the screen is not doing much, it will drop the refresh rate.
I was noticing that the other day at the event. I was like, this didn't happen before. So yeah, okay, that explains it.
Either keep touching the screen or watch
That's the one. That's the one.
Tap.
Keep touch. I do like touching things.
We'll leave it there. We'll be right back.
Boys, it's been good to get back in the saddle. I was going to say, I'm not going to find any riding analogies in there. I think we had enough of those in this podcast. So we'll be back next week. Safe flights, Daniel.
Thank you.
All goes
the
well.
taxi's
18 hours
downstairs,
forward.
So
Go.
run down.
Just say as well, thank you to everyone who's been supporting the podcast. You've been amazing. I mean, it's been great. I mean, sorry that we took so long to be here, but we'll be more consistent. But yeah, thank
Honestly,
you.
promise. Back in normal now. Yep. Okay, guys, let's get to it and get this posted and back in next week. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Bye.